It's Wednesday, June 4th, and we are talking about spilt milk, and it may all end in Aleppo. And I did some research on this, which I thought I would share with you first. So first of all, they talk about the Codex of Aleppo, and that's like the oldest Bible. Bible. And when they say Bible, they mean Torah, prophets, and writings. And it reappeared in 1947, but a lot of the Torah pages were gone. So, and because people could, sell a page of it for a lot of money. And I also looked up some, hey, Mary, let's see what I got here. You know what? The synagogue was absolutely beautiful. And, this is it before. Come on. Oh, here it is over here.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And then you see what it looks like here.
Yeah.
I mean, and most of the Jews in Arabic countries after 48 were hounded out, left. There was no quality of life for them whatsoever. The other thing, when we were talking about Syria, this is Eli Cohen. And when I think of Israel and Syria, I always think of him. Sacha Baron Cohen did a great thing about him on HBO. But he is the one who told the Syrian army to plant trees by the bunkers so the soldiers would have shade. So then Israel knew where to bomb.
Yeah, I remember.
Because there were trees.
Wow.
Brilliant,
Yeah.
simple but brilliant.
Simple but brilliant.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here's more about Aleppo. I mean, it was really a thriving. Oh, that's about the Codex. So, it's sad. It's a sad story. It doesn't really have a great ending. But tell me what you thought of this chapter. Judy.
Well, on page 101.
Wait, on page 101, yeah.
Right, where there's a sign that says no pests allowed.
Oh, yeah.
My great grandparents owned a resort in Lake Geneva. And they used to have people come up and stay. And my grandmother was a very well-known baker. And so they would house these people. And then all of a sudden, signs came up that were similar to no pests allowed, and they lost their resort. So the stories that I grew up knowing were very similar to this concept of being rooted out by unkindness. I found it, but I did love that she was part of the first administration of the felon and was able to bring us her perspective.
It's brilliant. Yeah. I also think I'm from Crystal Lake, and my grandparents did not want my dad to move out there because the lake used to have a sign, no Jews or dogs.
Oh, right.
That was on my grandparents' property.
Yeah, no Jews or dogs.
Yeah.
And my dad tried to join the country club, and because for business, because he was a veterinarian, and they said no, and he joined there. Eventually there was another one, and they came back to him and said, please, Dr. Michaels, please, please. He's like, nope.
Yeah. Oh, they came back to solicit.
Yes.
Because they decided, oh, wow.
Yeah, they decided his money was just as green as anyone else's.
Oh, God.
So talking a little bit about the Syrian community here in the States, it's super, super wealthy for the most part. I'm sure there's some, poor people, but I think there's like reality TV shows. Not that
There was one on
Yes.
One of those.
One of those,
Those
Bravo.
California ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a cousin who lived in Brooklyn, and he's my age. He ran their religious school, and they just had, they had so much money, and so their, B'nai Mitzvah, lavish, weddings, super lavish. So,
Why
yeah.
are they so rich? Whoops.
Well, I'm sure they,
A
well,
lot of them were diamond and
yeah,
jewelers.
yes, diamond. So until this time, and we have been talking about it, and we'll get, unfortunately, Alice, we'll get to Trump. Before the age that we live in, Jews did not own land, property, because they were worried they had to flee. So they became doctors and lawyers. You take that with you, and jewels.
Yeah.
Because you can take that with you. You can take all your jewels in a pack and you're gone. And I think, with what's happening in the world, and it's hard to look at, it's hard to talk about it, but, the Jews of America, we have big houses, and we have property, and we have a lot here. And Thursday we did In the Shadow of Greenbrier, my other club, and it's this, Greenbrier, it's a real thing, and it's in pardon?
West Virginia.
Yes, West Virginia. And one of the main characters, Sylvia, she had come from Poland, and her parents wanted to get her out. And when is it time to leave? That's
Therein lies the problem.
therein lies the problem. Because they had great lives there. And I remember when the Holocaust Museum opened in Washington, D.C., and they had like the life of Daniel, but they didn't just show the poor people in the concentration camps with no clothes. No, they showed these rich in both, monetary things and spiritual things, rich life these Jews had. Now in Poland, they weren't quite as well off, but there were some who were well off. And, I always tell the kids, when they had to move into the Warsaw ghetto, in Warsaw, some of those people lived in big houses. And when I was teaching, I'd say to the kids, I said, what if everyone said here you had to, move to West Rogers Park because that's where all the Jews are, and you had to share, a 2-flat with 5 families. So I think it's a really hard, when to leave is just very, very hard. And the juxtaposition, and the other thing I kept thinking about, sorry, Alice, is that she was talking about Trump won.
Yes.
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 And it's Trump too, and it's
a different-
worse.
Much worse. Much worse. Much worse.
Yeah, Mary.
So much worse. And I'm gonna-
But what about?
So I was in New York.
No, Alice doesn't like talking about politics. That's
This is
She just- and I apologize to her. The minute I read Trump's name in the short story, I'm like, Alice.
It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you, Alice. Mary.
So, just in New York visiting my kids, and Anne has said to me and Brian, they're moving apartments within the building. So we're not going to hang our mezuzah on our mezuzah, we're not going to put it on our door. And,
Was it on their old door?
oh yeah, presently there's one on their door. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so he says, we're just afraid to do that. So I get off the elevator, and I hadn't ever thought about it
Yeah.
before. On their floor, every apartment has one. I mean, they're living in a building that is
Yeah.
probably, the real estate broker
Yeah.
on both sides of the transaction are going to be Jews. I mean, but they are still, even though they're in a Jewish community, and they're living 3 blocks from the temple that they're going to, it is still this
It's a new fear.
a fear.
It's a fear,
yeah.
and
I think
it's
it's a fear.
present there. It is absolutely, even within that community, and I'm sure that people are start going to take them off their doors. I have a feeling that this is, I always call protect yourself.
Yeah.
And so there you go. I think that we're living in a very different time.
Yeah, we were away last weekend and we had an Airbnb and I went in the front door and there's a big mezuzah. And I said to my kids who had been there for a day, I go, look, there's a mezuzah. They go, I didn't even notice. How can you not notice? It's right when you walk in. So maybe your kids didn't notice that everyone else on the floor.
No,
you know.
they did. No, they know, but they're just no. But I think
I
that
think
it's a
so.
real fear, and if you're
Yes.
starting over,
Yeah.
you're not going to expose yourself.
Right.
Even though they're going down 4, 5 floors. It's not like
Yeah.
with the whole community.
Yeah.
But it's there within the Jewish
Right.
community of saying we got to protect ourselves. That's what I'm saying, and it's just
Yeah.
the way it is.
Lynn,
I'm going to come back to the story
good.
because I had some difficulty with this story.
Yeah, it
And
wasn't easy.
it was not an easy story for me. So it started in the very first paragraph of the story. And usually many stories, the key to the whole story is in that first paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
So when she talks about my Aleppo, I automatically plug into this is a fantasy image that she's having, my Olympa, my Aleppo, and thinks about the. We have to emphasize what her Aleppo was that she wants to get back to, and the title is very poignant. It may all end in Aleppo. So
Mhm.
I think what we need to discuss, and some of this was a little obtuse for me, is digging out what was in that Aleppo that she would like to see resurrected in our day and age. And I think some of the key of it was when she talks to Sal about their differences, but their similarities. And that was on page 100, where she said,
Did you ask me what HALAB
yes,
is?
yeah, what is that?
So on my 94, but just right, it says Aleppo, also known as Halab.
Oh, yeah.
It's another name for Aleppo.
Oh,
But she said that, see,
And Halab is milk.
but it's not Halab, it was Harek.
Oh, okay.
Haraek.
All
And
right.
she
So
said it was after that things fell apart.
all right, I'm going to have to keep looking for that. We have different
Okay.
pages. All right, keep going.
Okay. All right. So on page 100, they're talking about their different Judaisms, which is happened in our family. He Orthodox Sephardic, I Reform Ashkenazi. We spoke a few of the same Hebrew phrases, but in our respective accents, the words didn't match. Our common holidays were fetid with different customs. And while we knew some of the same time-worn songs, we sang them in different tunes.
Everybody
Talks about that talks about today and every day.
Yes.
But what we did share were stories. Moses freeing the Jews from bondage in Egypt, Esther, Queen of Persia, foiling Haman's plan to annihilate our ancestors, a flood that cleansed the earth of violence, sparing only Noah and his ark. What we shared was faith and tenacity in resolve in the olive branch, Noah's dove retrieved from an earth reborn. So that to me is her image of what she would like Aleppo to be. And the problem is in the paragraph above. We are concentrating so much on our differences that we fail to see what we have in common. And other than that, I mean, the partition, I am not at all knowledgeable about our history, I have to say. But when she says the Exodus began months after his birth with the UN's decision to partition Palestine, to me, that I'm wanting more information on this and how this led to what the troubles we're in today.
Well, I can talk.
Yeah.
Alice, go, and then
Yeah.
I'll talk about partition.
Yeah.
Lynn, I have a lot of responses to what you just said.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, Aleppo, I think probably most of us, I'm not talking about the Jewish part of Aleppo. I'm talking about recently.
Oh,
Didn't,
okay.
didn't we all hear about the destruction of the
course.
city of Aleppo?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's a big part of the story.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Well, so, okay. And then she teases out the Jewish part of it because she's interviewing a Syrian Jew who's from Aleppo.
Right.
And
The
so-
question, well, the
But wait,
question
wait,
is,
let me finish.
go ahead.
Let
No,
me
go
finish.
ahead. Yeah.
Let me finish. In terms of what happened in 48, I mean, Vanessa just said it. You know, when the state of Israel was formed, every single Arab country basically expelled
All the Jews.
their Jews.
So I
Mhm.
understand that. Right. I
Yeah, so wait,
understand that.
so that's what she's referring to.
Right.
And what I have one more thing to say. Lynn, I understand you come from a high school teacher's perspective, and you're looking the first paragraph you're analyzing. I think on a short story, and this was a really short story. I don't know. My approach is you read it. You read the whole thing, and you get, I mean, to me, this was it wasn't a direct story. It was a very like impressionistic, and it was her impressions from this man, what she knew about the history of Aleppo. And I think this story, I don't think it stands up to really line by line analysis. I think it's more like a feeling kind of thing. That's all I have to say.
Can I answer?
Imagination.
Sure.
I
And
would
then
like to-
Judy.
Yeah.
What,
No, Lynn, go
Lynn
ahead.
has to
Then
answer
Judy.
and
I
then
would
I'll-
like to, I would like
Yeah,
to
go
answer
ahead.
Alice.
Go ahead.
Okay. When I read a story, I am looking to see what is the purpose, what's the motive, why is this author writing this? Why did she pick this to write? And when I read that first paragraph, I am seeing her imagination, her creativity, her fantasy world of what she would like the world to be. And then as she goes back in time, she's trying to get at what happened. What happened here? And that's what I was trying to see. What happened? Why the destruction? What made somebody destroy them? And then I see different parts of this where she's saying, are we ever going to get back to that fantasy and make it a reality? And it sounds like no to me.
Exactly.
Okay, but I come at it from my perspective. You can come at it from your perspective.
No, of course. But the thing is, it was, I felt like you were criticizing the
Oh,
story.
I'm not criticizing at all. No.
Oh, I thought you were saying that it wasn't a good story because of
Oh, not at all.
I thought that's what you were saying.
Did you all think I was criticizing the story?
No.
No. I was trying to get.
I think it was just Lynn. I have Judy, Merle, and then Roberta. Judy, go ahead.
I think this is a stream of consciousness. I think she's saying what she thinks at the time, at the moment, and the
Right.
interaction she's having. And it's just stream of consciousness. I don't know that, I think this is different from all the other chapters we've read of hers.
Very much.
And this is strictly, if I were to sit down and write the things that I'd like and what's going on, this would be it. She is doing a good job of being able to put down on paper her wishes, her frustrations, but this is stream of consciousness.
Merle.
I saw this story as a social commentary about immigrants coming to the United States and then their view of immigrants in the United States. And I think she contacted him after she had read about the Battle of Aleppo from 2012 to 2016. that their country was torn up by this horrible civil war thing going on. And that was when she contacted him. And she seemed to want to know his views about what was going on with immigrants in our country. And he said, well, everyone has a little bigotry in them, because he clearly had voted for the president that she did not support. And she was shocked that he was accepting what was going on with immigrants here. So I saw this story as not really, I didn't think it was a very well structured story, but I ended up with seeing it as social commentary about an immigrant looking at immigrants. And having worked with immigrants when I taught ESL, I found that many of the immigrants that I taught who became citizens voted for Trump. And so it was like, oh yeah, I've heard this story before.
Yeah, absolutely. Roberta.
I think the purpose of this, I love the story, was I felt that the author felt the story had relevance for today, and it also had important information that she wanted to impart to the reader. I didn't know a lot about Aleppo. I only knew surface facts, and I found it very fascinating, interesting, relevant, a part of history that repeats itself. I mean, whatever way in which you want to take the story and integrate it, I thought there were many options to do that for the reader, and I liked it. I thought it was very informative.
Yeah. So just a quick history. Partition was voted on at the UN in November of 1947. And we've all heard, they call off all the nations and people are cheering and they're listening in Israel. But partition, the British don't leave until May 15th of 1948. And that's when the war started. And that was the longest war until the war that we're in now, which we're not going to get into. And so starting in 47, but certainly in 48, Jews in Arab countries were definitely, sent out, second-class citizens, and not unlike Aleppo, Damascus, Beirut. They had beautiful Tehran, beautiful Jewish communities. A lot of them came here. Now, of course, Iran, a lot of them came after the fall of the Shah. So, and we know that Assad, who, is somewhere in Russia right now, he killed his own people by the hundreds of thousands. He gassed them. He was evil incarnate, and that's what's happening now. And I one other thing, I think that when you look back at old communities, like when we look back at the shtetl and people think about Fiddler on the Roof, it wasn't that great. I mean, Fiddler on the Roof doesn't look that great, but, they're looking at, Aleppo and the smells and the sounds. And, I'm sure it was lovely, but there was still, a lot of poverty and all of that. So I think that, some of that we have to take, I don't want to say with a grain of salt, but we have to remember that it's been romanticized, just like, the beginning of Israel. Mary.
Okay, going back to the wealth thing. So in Aleppo, the wealthiest banker in the world was the Safra family. They still have incredible wealth. We just heard their grandson speak at Temple Emmanuel. And they were allowed investments.
Wait. Who's that? Okay. Go ahead.
They were allowed investments. They could own real estate. They were the largest banking entities. They were the major traders in silk, fabric, spices. They were a bedrock of the wealth of Aleppo.
Yeah.
Now, it all changed. He had to go underground. The guy in the story that she's interviewed had to go to an underground Jewish school. He couldn't go to the temple and have school. So you have to, the times changed and everything changed. But the Syrians who got out took a lot of the wealth with them. Yeah, in their pockets, wherever.
Wherever.
They had to make investments in
Right.
it with Morgan Stanley or
Right.
Chase.
My-
They left.
Right.
That's part of it.
I think my dad knew someone. My dad liked stamps, and someone took a stamp that was worth millions and millions of dollars and left, and that was his money and his family's money. He had a stamp.
Right. So that's, that's
Yeah.
where the Syrian Jews, they were allowed to own real estate. They couldn't do that in the shtetl. They didn't own
Yes.
anything.
Yeah.
Or in Italy, they were in the ghetto. They weren't allowed to own property.
Well, Italy, we're talking about centuries before.
No. But you're still talking the same stuff. You're
Yeah.
still talking about
Right.
people not being able to invest.
Except that when it's a Muslim country, Jews are considered people of the book, and they were a little higher up on the ladder than Christians. So that's just something to think about. I have Alan.
Finish my comment. 'Cause I have-
Yes, go ahead.
So part of this, I think, is that you said it was based on imagination. So Othello was the outsider. He was given
Yeah.
power, and he was tricked into. He killed his wife. Wife,
Yeah.
whatever. He was always the outsider. He was the one who should, and he was paranoid. Okay, and which is in your imagination. He played on the fact that, but he had great power because he was a great military person.
Oh.
Okay. Nabokov was separated from his wife in his story.
Yeah.
And his wife wasn't there, and he had the same thing. All this imagination of what she was doing,
Yeah.
who she was going to be with, was she being had fidelity to him. All of this is in the head. Both of them are paranoid. So I think that plays into the story. And I have a little trouble of feeling like in the end, like, why wouldn't you be paranoid of Trump? I don't quite get all that.
That's
I don't quite put it together.
That's
but
a
it is
whole.
all
That's a
about-
whole nother
but
thing.
It's all about imagination.
I have Alice, Elaine, and then Lynn. Alice.
For me, the main thing I got from this story is that history, we talk about, the expulsion of Jews from all these Arab countries. We talk about Assad, but now at the end, she talks about Al-Qaeda. It's all
Right.
these historical things, but to me, the main thing I got out of this story is that all these things affect people.
Yes.
It's not happening in a vacuum. These things are affecting people. They lose their homes, they lose their business, they lose their families, they lose their lives, whatever. And so it just, to me, it was like a mashing up of these historical things happening and this very impressionistic personal. It's, she said, my Aleppo. Well, she's an American. It's not her Aleppo, but this is like,
That's the Nazi Jew.
I don't know. It just, to me, because, she refers to so many different things. There's no way that most readers would know all about, what Assad did, what Al-Qaeda did, what happened in the 40s.
Yeah.
But it's just these, again, the mashing up of history, and it's people that are
Yeah.
affected.
Yeah. Elaine, Lynn, and then Judy.
Okay, I think in some ways we're being too literal. I think this is, if you take the contents of the book, it's a mother talking about her family. And I think it's a cautionary tale of what she was afraid is happening in the United States. And she's envisioning Aleppo as something out there. This could happen here.
Interesting.
And I think that we are missing some of that if we don't realize that she's talking about what is happening in the United States.
I should try to email her and say and ask.
You
That's
know,
a great
I mean,
idea.
yes, she's talking about a level,
Yes.
but she could be talking about a fantasy thing. She is saying that this
Yeah.
happened then, it could happen now.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes, a very interesting point. Jude, wait a minute. Yeah, Lynn. Then Judy, then Ellen.
Elaine, I agree with you totally. it was going to. No,
Totally.
I mean,
Yes,
think
yes.
of this story in the context of what we've been discussing all along. This is a woman who's in a religious crisis.
Yes.
You remember in the
And a
last story, in a personal crisis, and she says in 97, remember, I'm still waiting to believe in God. So
Yes.
she wants to remind us where she is in this quest for something to believe in. And I sort of stuck on this Aleppo Codex that she talks about, and the fact that the Jews, and this was the world's oldest, most accurate and complete copy of the Hebrew Bible. She's fascinated with that, and the fact that the Jews preserved it in a safe inside a rock beneath the great synagogue for 600 years. She is floored by that. And then she goes through the destruction of all of this. And she's saying, oh my God, as Elaine said, this is going to happen to us. Because that's why I was thinking, why did she bring in Trump? Well, she's bringing in Trump because guess what?
That's what she's thinking about.
Exactly.
And you think about what happened, we all say, oh, if this happened in 1940 and it could happen again. And we reference things all the time. And that's what she's doing.
Right. Judy, and then Alan.
There are 2 points I'd like to make. One is I think she is referring to Aleppo as the canary in the coal mine.
Oh,
Yes, yes.
Okay, and the other is the importance of learning history, which is why the current administration is destroying historical books.
Right, exactly.
History is critical for people who want to understand life. And
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You mean like renaming the naval carriers and banning books?
Yes.
We can't talk about it. We'll go crazy. Ellen.
You know, the whole immigration thing, it is so important. And it seems to me, I realize that the author is writing this more than 4 years ago, or Biden was there for 4 years, so whatever. And without making it political, although it almost has to be, I think that that's an opportunity for all of us that care about immigrants, that realize that immigrants come from, all of us make changes because we hope that it's for the better. And when immigrants come to our country, way more than, well, we'd like to think way more than the criminals. There are people that deserve respect and deserve an opportunity to grow, and we all know what's being taken away. But to me, thinking about this now, that's a huge takeaway from the story. I think it's the one thing that those of us that care and that respect the immigrants, it's different than talking about money and other things. And maybe if we could just be on that course of separating those that care about people and those that don't, it's more clear cut, we'd have something to go by.
Merle, Izzy, did you want to say something?
Yes,
Izzy, Merle, and then Roberta.
I was going to say, what struck me is that today they're talking about the Jews don't deserve Israel because they never lived there. They never lived anywhere around there. And they're disputing the fact that the Jews existed. They existed, but they were all kicked out a long time ago. So they don't live in those countries. And so they think that they just weren't there. You hear that all the time, right?
That's true. That is true.
That the Jews, never lived in all these places that they say they did because they were all shooed out. But that was years ago, and they forget. And I have to say, Alice, with Trump, oh my God, when Trump visited, when Viktor Orban came to
right,
him, I went crazy. I knew all about Viktor Orban and what he had done and I just went crazy. And she's thinking along the lines of this very could happen. It's parallel. It's so parallel to what's happening.
Yeah.
That really is.
Yeah. All right, Merle, then Roberta.
I think she did a beautiful job in writing. Her imagination of actually being there.
I think I think she wants to teach us a little history.
Yeah,
And
for
she gives us
sure.
a few little dates, and she says that Saul fled Syria in 1971, and that he had never even heard of the Holocaust till he was an adult.
Right.
And she starts out with Aleppo, this beautiful, fantastic city, and he had to leave this beautiful place at the age of 24. And if you remember being 24, everything was exciting, everything was beautiful in the world when you're 24. But she also goes on to say later about this country. Syria harbored Nazi war criminal Alois Brunner, architect
Right.
of the final solution. How many people know that? I mean, that was really a fascinating
Yeah.
Syria.
Hey, listen, we harbored plenty
Yes,
I
of
know.
Nazi
We needed them.
scientists, rocket
Yes,
scientists,
yes.
and that the Oppenheimer movie showed a little bit about that. So it wasn't just Syria.
Yes, but they said he was the architect of the
Oh.
final solution. I thought
Yes.
that was fascinating to me.
Well,
So
an architect of the final solution, and then Assad gassed people, probably from his
They taught it.
right,
They
his
said that in the story,
blueprints.
that he taught Syria,
Right.
he taught Assad what to do.
Yeah.
Right.
He was there to educate, how do you literate society?
So I thought she was trying to just show this example of Saul, who was this young,
Mhm.
idealistic man, and describes my Aleppo as the one that she learned about from him, and
Yeah.
then what it became. And
Mhm.
it's kind of, as someone said, cautionary tale, absolutely, of
Yeah.
what your country can become.
Right.
Yeah.
Roberta.
I think we have to remember on the front cover, it says memoirs.
Yeah.
Magical gift of a collection. So we have to remember
Good
that
point.
it's
It's a memoir.
her memories and what she, and it's
A
an
memoir. Sure, true.
Yeah.
individual
Also-
thought, message, what she wants to impart. And I think while all of us have similar takeaways from each story, this is a perfect example of various, all validated purposes and memoirs. And I think in that respect, she achieved her purpose, that it's a memory that is a gift to all those who read it.
Good idea.
Yeah. Elaine and then Lynn.
I think when we remember things, sometimes our memory is clouded by things that we wish had happened. And I think that is part of what she is saying also. She's saying that the terrible things could happen, but look how wonderful life was. And maybe it was, but you have to be realistic. And sometimes I don't think in the story that she was realistic, but sort of romanticized.
Wow.
And, it was a wonderful city. I remember years ago, Rabbi Ike did a book on Aleppo, and they were the coffee center of the world, and everyone was rich. But it's like here now, and I think, again, we have to be, I think it's a cautionary tale.
Agreed. Lynn.
Absolutely.
Well, Elaine, if we lose our idealism, we've lost everything, because then we don't have any vision to work toward.
Oh, I
And
agree.
I think that's what's happening in our country. We have been so beaten down by this president that we can't aspire anymore. And what she is saying is it's hard to keep that idealism. And I think this Aleppo Codex, look what they had to do to preserve that. They had to put it in a safe inside a rock beneath the synagogue for 600 years. Look how hard they had to do that to
Right, and
They saved it, and they saved it and took it to Jerusalem. It's now,
It's in the museum.
it's amazing.
And it burned
Yeah.
up first. It burned up first, page by page, and it was scattered all around. They had to find all the burned pages and
Right.
together. I mean, unbelievable.
So if they didn't have that idealism in their head to get that back together, and then at the end of the story, she comes to the title. And she said, if I'm not careful, he says, it may all end in Aleppo, which is to say, he doesn't think he can live inside of a fantasy. Survival, his, yours, ours, depends on truth.
Of course.
And that is the key if we don't keep in mind
So
that the truth is, keeps you, what is this thing? The truth
will
keeps
set you free.
Yeah.
Truth will set you free. Thank you, Judy.
And there is no such thing as an alternative truth. I'm going to go to Alice, but I want you to think about, do you think Sal's story was truth? Alice.
Okay, well, I think two things. One is, I want to comment on what Roberta said. Roberta, I thank you so much for bringing up that it's memoirs, because
Yes.
I think that goes to what you just said, Vanessa. Was it truth? Well, maybe not, but it's what he remembered.
Well, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, well, wait. So, but the other thing I just want to end my comment with is the last line of the story, I think was so poignant, because she says, I want to believe it's Noah's dove, dispatched to see if the earth is drowning or in bloom. Well, which is it? It's like, ugh, which is
A
it?
little
I
bit
don't
of
know.
both.
Sometimes I think it's
Guess
drowning.
what?
Yes.
Guess what?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the truth.
And-
That is the
Right.
truth.
When Roberta and Lynn were talking, I keep thinking about compassion fatigue. We are fatigued. We can't go, marches, we are fatigued. It was 4 years and 4 years, now 4 more years. It's just weighing on us. And look how beautifully she summed it up. Now, Sal, you don't think, because she said, it was Hollywood-ish. Don't you think he exaggerated a little? Or-
But that's what I was saying, that
Yeah.
you romanticize
Romanticize.
your years later it becomes, think about how you look at your children. When they were 13, they were awful, but now they're so wonderful. Okay. And they're successful, they're doctors, they're lawyers. You forget.
Yeah.
It's like childbirth.
Right.
You forget.
Yes, I say that. You forget, because otherwise you'd only have one
There's
child.
one child.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think that is what happens.
Yeah.
And people look at things, oh, it was beautiful. And everyone was wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, I think it could also go the other way. You can't tell anyone, but my mother went in, she saw the doctor. She had a cognitive test, which she failed spectacularly. And then that night she said, he was so mean. I go, no, he wasn't. He shook your hand. He asked if you needed any more prescriptions. Oh, yeah. So I think that was, you have to laugh or you cry. It's been my life, and we'll talk about Jonathan in a hot minute, but talk about the sandwich generation. But I was there, so I could say no.
But it's easier for her in her mind to blame the doctor and to cover, oh, I'm fine.
Yes.
That's what people do.
Have you been talking to her?
No.
Anyway, yeah. So, and don't you wish sometimes that you could just, there's a commercial where the two people are arguing and they said, let's go back to the replay, because you could go back in history and say, this is what happened. All right. Evie.
Lost in the descriptions. I was looking to what is the point, and yet she gave so much concrete detail at the same time. So the back and forth was difficult for my reading. On the other hand, she also mentioned that she's still looking for God. So here she's looking for the concrete, looking beautifully describing things, going back into memory. And I was also thinking about when we listen to the news now, and we know that some of the commentators are of our faith, and are they trying to figure out what is going on, and are they also struggling with their belief and their history and so forth? So I saw this as a like a collage of both the concrete the artistic, and I'm just getting so much more from the discussion than I had actually gotten from the story.
Yeah.
But so thank you for sharing that, because I was just kind of trying to absorb that.
And thank you to Mary for bringing up those references to literature. And I can't help myself. There's a new book out by Any Other Name by Jodi Picoult, and I think we're going to read it in our my evening book club. But it has a lot of references to Shakespeare. Some like By Any Other Name. That's from Shakespeare. But you know, it makes you wish you knew more about what they're referencing and how that happened. Not unlike Shakespeare in Love. And my dad loved Shakespeare, and he loved that movie and all of that. And at his funeral, we were sure to quote Shakespeare. So that just brings it, it really brings it. I appreciate when we talk, I appreciate this group and when we talk about things, because, we see different sides of it, and we see, we all bring our history to this memoir and what we know and what we don't know. And, I'm sure Lynn knows more about Shakespeare than I do, and I know more about history, but, I can't wait to talk about that book in book club. I haven't read it yet, but
and by any other name.
Yes, I put it in the chat.
Okay.
And also, if you listen to audio, which I do, it has a full cast recording.
Oh, my.
Oh, interesting.
So I love audio because I'm in the car and I listen all the time, and I just like it. Anyway, but Elaine, I agree with you about Sal, but I think he was also, sometimes you exaggerate to make yourself look better. Ellen and then Mary.
I think just the fact that he wanted his life, he wasn't writing it smart. And his comments to her, like sometimes she was good and sometimes she wasn't.
Yeah.
He was very prejudicial about what he thought of.
I never thought about that. That when she told the truth, that wasn't a good chapter.
I think that, okay, going back to memory, to what's been said, she ends with saying, you got to know the history, you got to know the truth.
Yeah.
He ends with, no, I want to survive. To survive, he had to be different than his situation, to be different than what it was. And I think to survive, he's always looking at Trump as helping him survive.
Yeah.
I think a strong man, I need a strong man. I don't need this wishy-washy, we don't have to be woke.
Yeah.
We have to be, but he couldn't deal with reality, and she wanted to deal with reality.
Look, I am sure that we have congregants here who voted for Trump. I don't get into it here because I can't and I shouldn't. But I was at the J once, and it was I'm there as Vanessa, not as a Macomb representative. And I got into it, and this is, before Trump won, with a Russian woman. And she was like, he's good for, he's going on and on and on. I said, you're an immigrant. How can you say that? They want, and I think, wait, who just said that? They want a strong man. They want a strong one. Merle, go ahead.
They're used to it. They're used to it.
So you're saying, what is the truth? And was Sal's truth the truth? And I thought he wasn't necessarily as perceptive as he thought, because when he hired her to help him write his memoir, he never thought she would get married and have children. He said, I didn't think you were that type of person. She's such a devoted mother. She's got such a close connection with her children, and most of her stories up to now, we've read about her children. So I thought maybe he didn't perceive things as accurately as he thought. So
well, listen, he's Arab, he's Jewish, he's Sephardic. The misogyny is centuries old, and it's hard to make your way out of that. And he's just got so much going for him there. Lynn.
I think the fact that he selected her. I mean, I'm sure that he did research and got somebody or hired somebody that he thought would be maybe objective. Maybe he wanted to learn something about himself as he's telling the story. So we never know what the motive is for his for why he wants a memoir and for why he hired her.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think that when she says we have to know the truth, I don't think that pertains to him. I think she's talking to all of us and to our society. And for
Yes.
people, and the people who are not I mean, I have no people, I'm not gonna, who don't want to hear the truth. I send them articles and they say, don't send me articles anymore. I don't want to hear them, you know, so.
People don't want to know.
Until you open your mind
Oh.
to the truth,
Horrible.
we're not going to get very far. You know, I think
And
that's
the truth has been so distorted from the news, from the news.
right.
You don't know what to believe, because if you listen to one station, you hear one side of it, and the other station, and the truth is the truth, as you said, but
Right.
but people believe the untruths, the lies. And how do you get the truth really out when people are repeating lies? If you repeat something enough,
Right.
you will believe it.
But I think
So
that
it's
paragraph
frustrating.
where she talks about the differences, how these differences, but this is what we have in common. That should be, I think, is her recipe for getting to the truth, whatever it may be. And it might be in the middle, you know, it might be in the middle, but to me, the values that people share are what make a harmonious relationship, not these other differences that you can reconcile in different ways. So I don't know if we'll ever get to values that are the same, that are even copacetic. I don't even know.
Yeah. It's hard, super hard. Roberta and then Judy.
It just reminds me of one line in a movie I saw. Truth doesn't have variations. I think
It's true.
now
Everything
is
else is interpretation.
Did anybody ever see
what's
the movie
true
Rash?
today?
Did anybody ever see the
all
movie
interpretation.
Rashomon?
Not fact.
Anybody ever see the movie Rashomon, where there's all different? Oh, it's a wonderful movie. It's a foreign film, but something happens, and 5 people have a different interpretation of what happened, and you really never know really what happened. And it opens up your mind to think that people look at the same thing
Yeah, it's a different thing.
and get a different impression.
perspective.
It was incredible. That book opened my. that film.
Judy, then Elaine. Judy, go ahead.
I agree with Izzy. The truth is what it is for you.
Right,
So in other
exactly.
words, if you live in a community and you have money and you have health care, it's a dandy place to live. You live in that same community, you don't have health care, you don't have money, it's a more difficult place to live. So let's just say that everyone is dependent upon their own truth.
Exactly.
That's part of the
Exactly.
problem.
So
That's part of it.
everybody's truth is different, because
Yeah.
you're here
Yep.
to decide what your truth is.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, Elaine.
I think one of the problems, and this is not the book, but it's that we as a society do not accept anybody else's ideas. We want everyone to agree with us. And that goes back to what Judy is saying, that your truth. I mean, I have a different background than Sue. And my ideas come through what I've grown up with. And I may come to a different fork in the road. And I think that's one of the things that is tearing our country apart, is that we want to be right and we want to know everything, and we don't know anything.
Right.
I think, and again, you know, I think we're being, as Izzy says, we're being bombarded with all of these ideas that you begin to turn off. I don't watch as much or listen. I listen to podcasts. I watch idiot movies on Netflix just to take up time because I can't anymore.
I think though, when Kellyanne Conway said in Trump won, alternative truth, that's really was the beginning of the end. And, you know, yes, we bring our different lens, but truth is truth.
There's no question.
Yeah. Mary.
I think truth is fact.
Yeah.
So the fact is we're sitting in this room.
Right.
we all could give different interpretations of what that means. And the problem with what we do is we listen to the media. All cable is commentary, and it's a game. Who's winning, who's losing, and it's interpretation. So the fact is, the facts used to be the nightly news. You got half an hour fact.
Right.
No
Yeah.
interpretation. Now we get our facts are only based through
I mean,
interpretation.
there's also been though, this fact that vaccines help us live, that got rid of smallpox, measles. That's a fact. And when people in power, polio,
Yes,
dispute that,
yes.
You know, you have a problem.
A
unbelievable.
healthy child does not need the COVID vaccine.
Right.
I saw that this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, I vaccine my kids up to their
Exactly.
noses, whatever
Anyway.
they offered.
It's 10:59, so we are not going to meet on June 18th. I don't know what's happening with me, but who's in town on July 2nd? Woo! All right, so let's meet on July 2nd, and I'll let everybody know. We'll read the next chapter, and then I do have to take off July. I'll look at August. I'll give you the,
Yeah, you're going.
and we're getting towards, well, we still have a little bit in this book. It's great seeing everyone. We have Juneteenth here on June 19th, and there's a dinner that Thursday night. Again, I may or may not be here. And, just look at your Macomb Weekly, it's called, our Macomb Monthly. It has everything that's going on. Oh, Cantor J's Ufruff is June 13th.
Right.
Yeah.
And Cantor J and Allie. Not just Cantor J.
Yes, he can't live without his roof.
Exactly, is he?
No, I'm saying I signed up for it.
Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.